It's Marcia Cork. I'm a certified change practitioner and diversity professional. For years, I've helped corporate teams and professionals navigate operational changes and improve workplace culture. Now, I create simple public speaking, communication, and change solutions that turn everyday people into confident professionals and entrepreneurs. Change is hard, change is messy, and change is scary. I know because just a few years ago, I was in a rocky marriage, unemployed, and broke, all at the same time. Eventually, though, I had to lean in, trust my skill set, and be my own solution. I'm also a seasoned voiceover talent and the voice of many of the brands you know and trust. So I know a little something about moving from hardship to entrepreneurship and helping you reset and rebrand. I'm Marcia Cork, and I am the Change Coach. Dr. Allen, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I am so excited about this conversation, particularly because, you are someone that I admire, respect. I actually put my life in your hands. My husband and I have been coming to you now for, I want to say over a decade. So I'm that much more excited to just showcase your business, and get to know you on a personal level. So under normal circumstances for interviews, I would introduce you, but I have you introduce yourself for these conversations, and I'll explain why. Basically because, my coaching model is rooted in building confidence and having people feel comfortable introducing themselves and representing their brand. So when I have these conversations, this is an opportunity for me to kind of assess the different ways that people introduce themselves. Mm-hmm. And it will also give the listeners, the viewers, an opportunity to see some variety in the ways that people introduce themselves or craft their elevator pitches. So I would like for you to introduce yourself to my audience.
Okay. All right, my name is Dr. Vanessa Allen, and I'm a family medicine doctor located in Glendale, Maryland, which is close to Boone. And I'm a solo practitioner. Also, in addition to my regular family practice, I also do integrative or holistic medicine or complementary medicine. And that involves not only looking at just a traditional Western medicine, but looking at or evaluating patients from a different perspective. So I also incorporate use of vitamins and supplements and using your food as medicine. I am able to do acupuncture. And those are just some of the things that I focus on with my use of my other half, as well as my traditional family medicine.
Okay. Thank you for that. I actually forgot about the acupuncture, so that was refreshing to hear. I've been thinking about that. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So I want to talk to you tonight about entrepreneurship and about confidence and how those things are intertwined. So we're going to kind of have a format that feels like past, present, and future. I want you to talk about the early years in establishing your practice, what made you decide to go into business for yourself, hardships and challenges that you've experienced. And then we'll kind of end on a lighter note about, how social media, if you use social media at all, if there are any things that you are looking to do with the business that maybe you hadn't been doing before, but we'll get there. So for now, let's just start with your entrepreneurship story. Yes.
So I did not want to go into private practice to start out. Okay. I was working for a group. And then after I got married, my husband's like, he was an entrepreneur and a CPA. And he's like, you should have your own business. I'm like, but I don't want to, but I'll help you. And I'll be your business partner and I'll do all the business side and you could just practice. It can be a holistic practice, just what you always wanted. You don't have to compromise and have to work for somebody else and practice the way they want you to practice. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I like that part of it. And I also have a special interest in weight management. So I counsel a lot of patients about their weight. And a lot of patients did not want to use medications. And so it made me learn about different ways I could teach patients about weight loss. I wanted to really focus on that. So that's how I got started as a solo practitioner. So it was challenging. I used to have a practice in Fort Washington, and then I decided to leave that. And I still wanted to stay in Prince George's County, but, you know, I had restrictions about where I could practice, and I didn't want to go back and forth with my old group. So I used to work I didn't work with her, but she worked for the hospital, and she was like our clinical liaison between the doctors and the hospital. And she had moved to Doctor's Hospital, and she says, "Oh, you should come. It's so much better. You will like it here." I said, "Okay." And so it was in Bowie, and I didn't really know that much about Bowie. So I thought my patients would follow me to Bowie because I didn't think it was that far, but they did not. Only about a handful of patients followed me to Bowie from Fort Washington. So I really had to start from scratch. And basically, you know, just putting myself out there, doing a lot of public speaking events, going to churches and health fairs. I did some, you know, at that time, social media was just, you know, it was out there, but it wasn't the predominant source of advertising. So it's mostly like small newspapers and ads and flyers and postcards and things like that. So
and what year was this again? What year was that again? What year was
that
this?
was probably about, let's see, probably about 15 years ago.
Okay.
And then gradually I did transition into social media, but that wasn't initially what I was using.
Okay. Okay. So I want to just connect the dots a bit more. So you were in Fort Washington, thought that the clients would follow you to Bowie. They did not. So you had to hit the ground running and establish that client base.
Right.
And you did that by, you said, doing, you know, church, speaking at churches, different events, just to get your name out there. Was there ever
somebody needed a speaker about any topic? Okay, I'll do it.
And were you typically looking for people? I mean, looking for different opportunities to speak, just to get your name out there?
I was, and some people would just approach me. Or you know, if I put my name out there with one, somebody will say, "Hey, can you come speak to my church?" Or "We're having a health fair. You want to set up a table?" Things like that. Or sometimes I would just when people would come, you know, like say like. I had one person who was in physical therapy. She was looking for business. She was, "Oh, we're having a health fair. You want to come to our health fair?" Sure. You know, so different things like that.
Yeah.
I would tell you, you would talk to somebody if there was an opportunity. Sure, I'll come speak, you know.
Yeah. And I love that. I have a saying, I do the same thing. Basically, I call that my philanthropic part. You know, there are lots of conversations these days around trying to convince entrepreneurs to not do things for free. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I still see those speaking opportunities and doing fairs and events as a way to drum up that visibility, get your name out there, and also establish yourself as a subject matter expert. So you can't always just jump right in, especially expected to charge these premium prices when you haven't done the work. People don't really know your name. And then, like I said, it's a way of still feeling like you're doing something for free to support the communities and populations that you want to serve. So I'm glad that you say that, because I do want people to remember that, you know, you are still providing a service, and there are some things that you can and should be willing to still do for free to get to drum up business and visibility for yourself.
And then even if the people don't come to your event, if it's at a church that they like, that they go to, they say, "Oh, I saw you speaking to my church. Maybe she's got some credibility." So even though they didn't actually come, they saw my name on the list, or they might have heard me speak, but they didn't come right away, but maybe like, "Oh yeah, I do remember you speaking a year ago," and they might. And then when it's time for open season, they'll sign up.
Yeah.
So it's not right away, might not be right away, it might be 6 months or a year down the road.
Yeah. So what were those early days like when the business did not come quickly? About how long did it take?
So I had two small children. So I was working at Kaiser part-time while I was building my business, because I left my Fort Washington group, and then I was home on maternity leave for a little bit. And then I went back to work with Kaiser part-time. And then I was building after I like Kaiser because it was very regular. But then that's when we had that conversation. You should switch. You should go to private. And I was like, I don't know if this is a good time. You know, I got 11 children. I just had a baby. Yeah. So, but while I was building my practice, I was still working at Kaiser.
Okay. And that's also something that we see sometimes. If you aren't 100% ready to take the leap, you may just kind of dabble on the side.
Don't even have income coming in.
There's that. I've been consulting since I had my daughter, so since 2009. And it gave me the flexibility that I needed and wanted. But I mean, there's something to say about consistent money.
That's what I envisioned. I was envisioning like starting from scratch and working from home, and was building this business, but it didn't work out like that.
Yeah. Since 2009, I've only been FTE for 3 years. I've worked on site for 3 years with WSSC, but aside from that, it's been exclusively, teaching, consulting, evenings and weekends, that sort of thing. So I have learned to stretch that dollar very thin. I can live on just about anything, but I know that is a struggle for some people to jump right in, not knowing whether they'll be able to live off that off of their earnings.
And I was kind of surprised. I'd always work for somebody else, and so it was kind of scary knowing they're like, oh, can I do it by myself?
Yeah. It is helpful. I heard you mention your husband is an entrepreneur, and he was, behind you, coaching you through it, letting you focus on your.
Most of his working life, he pretty much had his, worked on that. He would create businesses,
Yeah.
And so he didn't really do that much, even though he's a CPA. He didn't really do like taxes and things like that. He worked for maybe a large company for a little bit, but for the most part, he had like small businesses. He kept going.
Yeah. So that's good. You had a serial entrepreneur behind you. And a lot of people don't have
so a lot of people
examples.
Even in the medical profession, they depended on someone else to do their billing and things like that.
Yeah. And just to have a model, a successful model of entrepreneurship, that it is possible. Yeah. Well, were there any times where you thought, okay, this is not going to work, I'm going to have to go back to full time?
Not really. I think because he was pretty much the driver as far as like, just different things like I knew since I've been practicing for a while, I knew what I had to do. Like, I had to get on board with these insurance companies in order to put my name out there as well. So I knew I had to get those things processed. And then, I knew like, what it would look like to set up an office. So I knew like, what equipment I needed to buy, what I could start out with. And I started out like maybe subleasing from someone else before I got my own space. Okay. So I think like I brought in the medical experience about how an office should be run, what it should look like, whereas he brought in the accounting expertise and contracts and things like that.
Okay.
So in that aspect, I didn't feel I couldn't do. It was just like, taking that first step about like, oh, I don't think I can do this. I remember one time I was working with someone and I didn't quite have my office space together. You had to put an office address down. And she said, just have the form. I was like, I can't, Because when you think you're going to be, it's like, I do. Well, put the address down. You can change it.
That's what is it? Analysis paralysis.
Like, oh my God, I can't pull it out.
Yeah. No, that is real. So there's the confidence playing a part in it. And like I said, the confidence is going to be a recurring theme here tonight alongside entrepreneurship. As we've mentioned before, you are comfortable speaking. Did you start out that way, or did it just kind of happen by osmosis?
Because I think like, when I started a practice in Fort Washington, I was working for a hospital. So it was a new practice. And that kind of put me out there as far as like speaking. From there, I had to start up a new practice from scratch and had to, get patients to come see me when I started my practice in Fort Washington. So that kind of, I was used to, this was my second time starting a practice. So I wasn't that unfamiliar to me about what I needed to do to put myself out there in order to get a patient base pretty quickly. So I think I felt comfortable speaking in public. And then if it's something you're very comfortable with, something you're knowledgeable about, I felt comfortable on the subject matter. It wasn't like I was like blindsided and I didn't know what the topic was going to be. Right. So that was more comfortable. And like I said, once you can do it, you get used to it, you get your comfort zone. And so I think that helped a lot. And I can't say I ever thought about doing public speaking, but I do like promoting what I do. And I like educating people. So I think I felt comfortable because I felt like it was more like an educational infomercial, so to speak, as opposed to, just promoting me.
Okay. So let's talk about, I guess we've kind of covered where you felt like you had an abundance of confidence. You
Mm-hmm.
were knowledgeable, you were comfortable knowing that you could speak on the subject
Mm-hmm.
comfortably. And that's a lot of the problem with people, is that they feel like they aren't knowledgeable enough, or that they will be fumbling and stumbling for information. And so they're already anxious about having to speak on anything,
Mm-hmm.
because they're worried about how they come off. Do I come off
Right.
as knowledgeable? Am I, maybe losing credibility here because I'm so nervous and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not representing myself well? So it sounds like, lucky for you, you did not have those types of problems, but you realized early on that it is something that you have to use or you will lose it. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
the only way to get comfortable with speaking regularly and representing yourself well is by doing it pretty consistently. So
Mm-hmm.
looking for those opportunities even when they don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about social media. What are you doing with social media
I'm
to?
not really comfortable. Like, as you talk about awkward, I'm not really comfortable with social media. I feel like it's
Mhm.
too invasive, and you have to put too much of yourself out there, and you always have to put something on to keep people interested. And I just don't have the time span or the attention span to do that. So, I tried. I have a Facebook page, and it's not up to date. So don't go look at it.
I understand. I think I'm
And I have
about
a
to
website,
abandon
which I
it
probably have
altogether.
redone like maybe 2 or 3 times since I've had it.
Okay.
And my website and my Facebook page are linked. I do send out something that if you inquire information, it'll send you something. And so that's probably like the extent of what I'm doing now. When I was very proactive, and I was really trying to build my integrative side of my medical practice, I was very proactive, and I was trying to put weekly updates and hints and tips about, wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't really see the return. I didn't see really many people responding to it. It didn't really grow my volume. I have MailChimp, and that collects, addresses and emails and things like that. But right now, I'm not really doing anything with them. At one point, I was using it like if I was promoting something, like say if I was hosting a webinar, or I was hosting some weekend retreats. I was trying to build my weight loss practice. And so I was using MailChimp for that. But right now, I'm not doing anything. I'm kind of like in a rebuilding phase where I was like I put my integrative practice aside for a little bit. It was just focusing on the family medicine.
Okay.
And so now I'm thinking about maybe I might go back and revisit it. I might change the shift. Like, with COVID, it allowed us to do more online. So I'm thinking about maybe doing, go back to doing maybe some, I do televisits, but I might do some. I did a group visits webinar for diabetes. Might offer some coaching online from an integrative perspective. So I'm thinking about maybe revamping it or relooking at it from a different perspective.
Okay.
So for right now, I'm not doing anything with it. But like I said, I've hired other people in the past to help me promote myself online on the social media. I don't think they did much better than I did. So I was like, the numbers look the same with them trying to put content on there regularly. So I kind of lost interest with that.
Yep, that makes sense. I can relate to a lot of that. Number one, I am not, people think that I'm a social butterfly, but I am not. I am able to turn it on when I need to, and then I'm exhausted, and then I retreat for a while. Yeah. So I've never been the type of person to be active on social media to begin with. I don't post much about my personal life or about, my family, children's accomplishments, vacations, things like that. I hop on periodically, but it's not consistent. So to expect that I would be able to do that with my business, I knew that it would be unlikely. I know that it's necessary, like you said, I know that it's necessary to some extent. And so I really just walk this fine line of what I call the happy medium. So it's choosing one platform and maybe being consistent on just that one. It's, how much can I commit to? So for me, that's LinkedIn. I think my audience is primarily on LinkedIn, but I haven't been able to keep pace with what's expected of Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest and, maintaining all of these different things. Right. So I know that it's important. Like I said, I'm trying to find that happy place, that one, medium where I can reach most of the people that I want to connect with and post with some consistency. So for me right now, that's LinkedIn. So we'll see where it takes me in the future. But for right now, that's where I am. So I understand that. I do want to, you mentioned the newsletters. I do want to maybe start some newsletters, or at least post consistently. Well, put out content consistently.
Right. Like I said, maybe consistently I could go back to that, right?
Yeah.
And something that could be covered across all, posted one place and everybody would see it. I would have to constantly keep doing it.
And so those will be the people who follow and connect with you and who have opted in to receive this communication. Anyway, so, people always say that for a lot of these platforms, yes, you may be posting content, but that content isn't yours. They can change the algorithm. They can change the amount of exposure that you get. So although it's beneficial for some, or it was at least in the early days, it probably doesn't have the same benefit or use of visibility that it used to have anyway. So yeah, I think it's really about just finding where your audience is, meeting them where they are, wherever that is, and not so much about having to be visible across all of the different platforms.
And then trying to figure out, what does your audience want from you?
Yeah.
And then how are you going to attract new people? And then are they going to do something with that information? Like, are they going to become patients or customers or whatever it is that I'm promoting? So that's the challenge. Is like, well, yeah, my old faithful will come, but they already know me, but I'm trying to attract a new group. Well, how do I get them?
And it sounds like there would be some challenges across the different services that you offer for, say, for the acupuncture or for the weight maintenance, things like that. It seems like it would be a different demographic. Yeah, so it wouldn't even be, you probably wouldn't reach all of those people in the same way.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything that you are still looking to do? I know you mentioned, maybe starting up your newsletter again. Is there anything else that you'd like to accomplish?
Before the pandemic hit, I was interested in, I had started doing some one-day retreats, and that was a gone one. I started out with maybe like about, my first one had maybe about 25 people. Then the next one I did had like 45, 50. So then I wanted to extend it into a weekend retreat, maybe locally in the area. And then my goal is to have a destination retreat with a focus on wellness. So I'm thinking about, maybe restarting that up again. But again, I got to, start all over, not completely start all over again. But, how am I going to attract that type of person who's interested in doing a weekend retreat, who's doing a destination retreat? It's like the current practice I have, they haven't really been interested in doing, there's a certain fine line I have. This income is fine, but if you charge this much, we don't want to do it. So trying to find like who they might not be my patients, but they might follow me and do something like a weekend retreat or a destination retreat. So it might be somebody who doesn't see me as a regular practice. And then trying to, attract people who maybe are not my patients, who are not linked to me through the insurance, but I just like what you do, and I wouldn't mind consulting with you about XYZ. So trying to see if I could attract those type of patients as well.
Okay. And how does that communication start? I understand the planning portion, but then
I think I was using to the point, either Facebook or and then building a building what is it, your list of names that through, I think, MailChimp. So every time somebody clicks on my website, I say, click on my website, we say, hey, if you fill out this something questionnaire, we'll send you something back in return. So that collects the email addresses. And then, I was communicating with them routinely, but now I haven't in a while. But maybe set up, maybe the newsletter, or what am I doing? What am I thinking about? And then maybe starting again with maybe doing a one-day retreat, a weekend retreat, and then building up to a destination retreat.
Okay. And what apps or platforms did you use for, say, registration, things like that?
Let's see, how did I do it? I can't remember the name of the, I created just like one of like a temporary website. I can't remember, it was like one of them free ones that you could convert to a paid one to get them more. But I just did one of those. And then And then I think I used the database from my MailChimp, and I sent that link out to everybody. And then like when I was building up to getting closer to my, like say the day that I did the retreat, I would send them, like invitations or evites to sign up for that particular event. I think that's what I mainly use. I think I also used, I can't remember what's the name of the other site, people like events.
Eventbrite.
Yeah, I think I used that to purchase tickets from, if you want to do that, or you put the link on directly from the website to purchase tickets.
Okay. And 25 people you said you've done this how many times? Because that's a pretty good response. Yeah. I'd be one of those people.
Maybe like, I think most of them were my patients, but some of them brought friends, so that helped. And then, so I don't know if I attracted people who never had met me before and just did like, hey, I like what she's saying. I think most of it was like word of mouth, whereas they were patients, and then, hey, I went to her first one. Why don't you come with me? So I think most people came with somebody else, where the first time they might have come by themselves.
Okay. And would you say that you had already built kind of a relationship history with them from your mail list?
The first one,
and from your communication before launching this retreat?
Right.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you've had some wins. You've had some success pretty steadily.
And it's like I said, I would like to do more. I think that's my forte. That's my niche. But my bread and butter is my family practice.
Yeah. So so
I like to go in that direction. I would like to do. That was the original plan, was to do more of the integrative medicine. But like I said, I've just like incorporated it into my family medicine. It's not separate. I used to have them separate, and I tried different things over the years, whether I was going to do it like on certain days I had set aside to do the integrative medicine. But like I said, it just didn't really take off. And so then I just, because I like doing it, and I think patients want it, they just don't want to do it separately. And so then I just incorporated it into it. But my goal is to just, at least, commit more time to doing more integrative medicine.
Okay. And it sounds like you're still able to, still include this within your services offered, but also recognizing as a woman in business that you gotta give the people what they want. And so that's the bread and butter, and recognizing that and walking that line between passion and purpose. I know that's always a conversation that people have as entrepreneurs is, are you driven by the passion, driven by your purpose? Is your purpose helping you find your passion, or the other way around? Yeah. Well, I think that we have touched on all of the things that I wanted you to talk about in terms of entrepreneurship, representing yourself, representing the business, getting out there and getting visible. But is there anything that you would like to share that I haven't covered or addressed? Anything particularly inspiring for people considering entrepreneurship?
I think that, when you're into something new that you've never done before on your own, ask for help, enlist others, whether it's taking a class or getting a mentor, or say if it's somebody you like and you like what they do, you can always set up a time to ask them. Most people like talking about what they do. And if they're passionate about it, they'll share. Like, sometimes I'll have medical students come in or students who are undergrads who haven't done any medicine, and they just want to know what I do. And I don't mind them coming in shadowing me. Or so, like I said, if I heard somebody, like say if I went to a lecture and I heard somebody talk, and I might, send them a message, hey, I really like what you did. Could we sit down? Could I, bounce some ideas off of you or something like that? Yeah. And so, like I said, reach out and get as much information as you can, because most people will share it with you.
Are there any influencers that you follow or who are doing what you would like to see yourself do in social media?
I just started recently listening to podcasts on my way home. So there's different podcasts I listen to. So some of them are like mostly geared towards physicians doing non-clinical things. Because like I said, as I get ready to shift into my third act, I would like to do some non-clinical things. And like I said, mostly centered around health and wellness. So I've been listening to those type of podcasts.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm actually considering a podcast myself. I'm thinking about even this conversation, turning this into a podcast episode. So I will keep you posted on that.
All right.
To put some.
How do you do that?
Well, it really just seems like it's a matter of just making the audio available and uploading it to something like Anchor. I know that there are a few different platforms that can help just put it out there for you. So that's what I'm going to do next.
Yeah, so you never know.
Yeah, so I will keep you posted on
that. Like I said, I get lots of ideas from my patients there. There's so much talent out there. And I always ask patients, what do you do? Because I always find it interesting. And usually you never know, you might come full circle and say, hey, can you help me with this or something?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I hope this is just one of many conversations that we will have to just check in on each other, keep each other inspired. Hold me accountable. Next time you see me, ask me what I've done with that podcast idea. Exactly.
I wrote a book about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was The Healthy Way, the mind, body, spirit path to wellness or weight loss, natural weight loss. That's what it was. And so it started out as I was, promoting wellness and weight loss. And I was always saying the same things over and over again. I was like, I should write this down because I do it all the time. And then I had thought about it like maybe 20 years ago. I had a patient who was from my first practice and I hadn't seen her in like years. She came, did you ever write that book? I was like, what are you talking about? You told me you were going to write this book. I said, I think I started that outline and I put some thoughts together, but that's as far as I got. And when she told me that, I was like, that must mean something. That's not an omen in a bad way, but that was something I tell me, girl, write that book.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I finally wrote it. So that was another accomplishment. It's something I always wanted to do. And then, now that it's been like a while, I'm thinking about maybe I should like go back and tweak it a little bit. And like I said, relaunch it.
Update it. Yeah.
Do it from a different perspective, maybe not do a hard copy, but make it, like since everything's more digital online and in ebook, it is an ebook available, but I might go back and change it a little bit.
Okay.
But maybe focus more on an e-version as opposed to a hard copy.
Okay. So where can people find that?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
And I think that the way the Amazon works, I think it's, if you looked up Dr. Vanessa Allen, I think it comes up as opposed if you looked up the natural way.
Okay.
And it's W-E-I-G-H, not W-A-Y. So it's a play on words.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I will be checking that out. I'm glad you mentioned that. We've never had a conversation about the book
meant
before.
to put a copy out here. But I don't remember where I put it. Oh, here it is. Okay, let me get it.
Okay.
Do you see it?
Yes. Thank you.
There you go.
Perfect. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I would have never thought to ask you whether you've written any books.
I think you said, like, what are you going to do next? I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't forget. What's my next project?
Very good. And you said that was how far into your practice where you wrote the book?
Well, like I said, I think I had the idea concept when I first started practicing, which was like, more than 30 years ago. But I think that over the years, when I started focusing more on weight loss, just saying the same thing over and over again, I was doing some small groups with that. And I was going to put a brochure together for them or as a part of their workbook. And then I was like, like all my patients ask me about weight loss and I don't really have the time in the format I use, to see patients to go into depth about weight loss with them. But if I write this book, I say, hey, just write a book. It's done. Yeah. Pretty
just write a book. I mean, that is quite a time commitment in addition to having the practice and having children. So I applaud you for doing that. So what was that process like? I know I've already kept you beyond our time, but if I can just have you end with that very quickly, then I'll let you go.
I just started out with I had in my mind what the outline was. And so then it was just like, okay, write a chapter, a day or a month or something like that. And so I already had all the data, not data so much, but I already had all the content from over the years. Like I said, I've been doing it. So I had the content. It was just all a matter like, okay, what would you do when you did, like, you already know what you wanted to do. It was kind of like a 10-step plan. And so then each chapter was a step. And then I always had that mind, body, spirit. So mind, body, spirit was a theme for each chapter. And so each step had a mind, body, spirit approach. And then it led up to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, till you met like your weight loss goals. So this is where you start from, and this is where you'll end.
Okay.
And then
how long would you say that process?
From there.
How long would you say that took, that process,
writing
the book? Okay.
When I actually sat down and committed to doing it, probably about a year.
Okay.
Because then once I got the basic format down, then, I was, like, how am I going to get it published? And then, so I self-published on Amazon, and then Amazon had a, editor who would go through it and, they said, oh, we think you should maybe include this in, or you should expand this chapter out a little bit more. Or, at first I had pictures through it, and then I was like, oh, copyright, that's going to take too long. So I take all the pictures out. Make it real generic. I had downloaded these beautiful pictures online and stuff. They go, did you get copyright permission?
Yeah.
No, I didn't do that. I didn't want maybe my book's such a huge success, they'll come after me. We'll just take it out.
Yeah. Keep it simple. Because as they say, it's better to have it done than for it to be perfect. We take all that time trying to get everything right. And then it never gets published.
I said, if I had to do it again, I might put pictures in there. Some of the fonts I wanted to be a little bit bigger, but like I said, I think if I had to do it again, I'd just start out as an ebook, and then I might include more options. Like now, I do a more vegan lifestyle, so I probably include more vegan options in there, and just different things I've learned about. I was mostly promoting a low carb, and I might include other options other than low carb. So.
Well, you have a very exciting next chapter. I am looking forward to the relaunch of the book and to everything else that you're doing. Thanks so much for this conversation, Dr. Allen. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, the inspiration. Hold me accountable. Well, if you don't want to close with anything else, I will let you go. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.